I told myself that I was going to wait before seeing the Wicked movie. I decided that I was going to see the Broadway stage performance somehow, some way before watching the movie, but I just couldn't resist. Like a moth to a flame, I gave in to temptation and I watched Wicked, and I gotta say, I loved every second of it. It was so freaking good. The visuals were stunning, the performances were amazing, the music was great, and I was blown away by the story. It changed the way that I look at Wizard of Oz, and I can't put it into words, so I just wanted to turn on the recording and just talk because there's a lot of things on my mind about the movie right now, and what better way to discuss it than to talk with you guys about it. So I've heard bits and pieces about Wicked in the past because my dad saw it like five, six, seven, however many years ago, and I knew that it was a backstory of Glinda and Elphaba before the Wizard of Oz and during Wizard of Oz, which part one didn't get to any of that yet, and I know it overlaps and intertwines somehow, but I don't exactly know how. But anyways, the story itself, which spoilers by the way, the story takes place uh, right at the end of Wizard of Oz. We see a little musical number of like, oh, the witch is dead, and people are celebrating in Munchkinville. And then a kid asks, "Is it true that you were friends with the Wicked Witch to Glinda?" And she's like, "Yeah, we were friends, but that was a long time ago." And so we go back in time, and we basically see their entire story together in college, and like tons of musical numbers, and how Glinda was apparently the popular girl, and nobody liked Elphaba because she was green and whatnot. But over time, things change. Glinda and Elphaba get much closer, and Elphaba starts training to become a witch because she has this inherent magical ability, which nobody else in Oz has, which is strange. And so she starts learning magic, and Glinda's jealous, but they're rooming together, they're working it out, and just throughout the course of the movie, they become more friendly with each other, and uh, Elphaba gets a trip to Oz to basically meet the wizard, where she then finds out, of course, that the wizard isn't actually a wizard because, well, we've known this for 90 years from Wizard of Oz that he doesn't have any inherent magical power, and that he needed her in order to essentially enact his goals of controlling the animals and transforming them and removing their ability to speak, which is kind of messed up. It changes the way that you look at Wizard of Oz because throughout the entire movie, you're looking at the Wicked Witch, Elphaba, as just being this evil being, this pure evil character with no humanity that just everybody in Oz despises. But the truth of it, through which I was expecting some point in Wicked for Elphaba to turn and become evil, but that never really happened. Like, she grew over time, and there were these moments where, like, everybody was just, like, scolding her and making fun of her, and I was like, okay, this is the time when she's going to turn and become evil, but it didn't happen. She kept her composure and kept being a good person, and instead of her becoming evil, it turned out that the wizard and the everyone in Emerald City, they were all evil. She was the only good person, and they all essentially turned on her because she was this outcast green person with magical abilities. Which something else I never realized about Wizard of Oz is that the Wicked Witch of the West is the only person who ever actually uses magic. Yeah, you ever think of that? So, Glinda, the Good Witch, does not actually use magic in The Wizard of Oz. She has that little bubble thing, but that's not magic. And in the beginning of Wicked, in the that present segment before we start going back in time, we see Glinda hit a button to activate the bubble, so it's not magic. And just in the movie entirely, she doesn't use magic at all. Uh, Michelle Yeoh doesn't use magic at all, like the dean of the school. She doesn't use magic at all. And the only person who ever uses magic is Elphaba, who just so happens to be green, the color of Emerald City, It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And I just have I this had to have been a plan from the beginning. Like I know Wizard of Oz was a book when it came out like 100 years ago, but this had to have been some sort of inherent plan. It's just too good of a coincidence that Emerald City, this place that is called Emerald City, is green, and the Wicked Witch of the West being green, and her being the only one who actually uses magic, and the wizard who is like the head of Emerald City and the most famous person in Oz cannot use magic. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think it's brilliant. I think it's genius, and it just changed the way that I look at the entire movie. But other things in the movie, the acting, fantastic. Uh, like the two actresses, I'm currently blanking on their names, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. I knew who Ariana Grande was just to know who Cynthia was, but they were both fantastic. They could sing, they could act, they knew the choreography, they knew how to move like characters do in a musical because everybody's much more animated in a musical. Everyone's moving a lot more, and it was great. And like Jeff Goldblum, never seen him sing before, but apparently he can sing. And Michelle Yeoh, she can sing too, apparently. It was just cool to see because I enjoy musicals. I enjoy watching them. My favorite musical before watching Wicked was The Greatest Showman, which I liked that a lot just because I like Hugh Jackman and the other actors in the movie. I just think it's a really good movie, and I haven't really seen any musicals outside of animated Disney stuff and maybe the occasional live action thing that were up to par with The Greatest Showman. But halfway through Wicked, part one, because there's a part two coming in Thanksgiving, I knew that this movie was going to dethrone The Greatest Showman. Just the choreography, the set design, the costumes, the acting, the music, so much more iconic. I just loved every second of it. And as someone who's directed my own senior thesis in college, as well as a couple of other things in the past, smaller projects, of course, I don't even know where you start with directing a musical. Like, I would love to direct a musical at some point later down the line, but I don't even know where you begin with that. Like, you need to have a ton of previs, or maybe you just hire somebody else that does the dance choreography. I'm not completely sure, but man, Wicked was it was wicked. That's the best way I can describe it. It was cool. Just the way that it completely recontextualizes Wizard of Oz is fascinating to me. Like I don't think I've seen any type of film or TV project ever that does something like that where it changes the way that you look at something, except maybe the Star Wars prequels to the originals, but not really on the same level. Wicked was it was just wicked. But that being said, there is one more thing about the movie which is kind of weird. So, if you've seen Wizard of Oz, you know that Dorothy basically is in her house, it gets caught in a tornado, and she appears in Oz, where she goes on that journey to the wizard before clapping her heels together and going home. After that happens, you find out that, well, she found out that the entire journey that she went on in Oz and Oz itself, it was all a dream because she was seeing the faces of people in her life as people within Oz, which obviously didn't exist and she was imagining it. So if you think about Wicked in that sense, then Wicked is a backstory to a dream that a character had 90 years ago in a movie, which is kind of odd. But thinking that in the back of your mind doesn't detract from the rest of the movie. There's still plenty of things to enjoy, and even if you're like super logical or whatever, just forget about that. Enjoy the story. It doesn't really matter that much. And I know there's a book that came out like forever ago that is a sequel to the original Wizard of Oz book, where we go back to Oz and it sort of implies that everything that happened in Oz actually did happen and that it was a real place. I'm not completely sure. I haven't read the book, but I know it exists. But Wicked is still very clearly following the movie canon of Wizard of Oz, which still kind of weird, but you can easily ignore it. But another thing about the movie, which I thought was kind of strange, is there are a lot of times when the movie really tries to show you the origin of things that you don't really need the origin of. And I know in the live show, like the actual Broadway show, they do keep some of these elements, which I haven't seen the Broadway show, so I don't know everything for sure. But I know they show like the origin of the flying monkeys and stuff like that. But the movie, I'm told on reliable information that in the live play, they didn't show the origin of the Yellow Brick Road. And my thing is, did we really need to see that? Like, it's such a small thing, and I just don't think we need to see the origin of all of these things in Oz. I think some things can just exist, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. Another minor criticism of the movie, which doesn't take away from my enjoyment of it at all, I just thought it was getting a little bit intrusive towards the middle part. There was a lot of music. And I know a lot of the music in part 1 was not actually in the Broadway show. I know they created a lot of new music and added it in for the movie, probably to pan out runtime and probably create some new iconic classics, which is fine. They can do that. But about halfway through the movie, or almost halfway through, there was a segment that lasted about 20 to 30 minutes where it was just straight up musical numbers. Like one musical number led into the next one, which led into the next one, which led into the next one. And it got to a point where I was just thinking, can't we just have a moment to breathe? Because the movie didn't really give us a whole lot of breathers in that middle segment. Towards the end, we had plenty of time to breathe and just absorb what has been happening, which yeah, the music is fine. It was all great. There's maybe one or two musical numbers which I think maybe the movie could have done without, but that's just me. But with all of that being said, Wicked Part 1 is now easily my favorite musical ever made. Just the act again, the acting, the costume design, the set design, it felt like immersive to a point where I want to know more about Oz. I want to know more about that world in a way that the Wizard of Oz just never really invested me in that way. So I just I don't know. I want to see more of Oz, and it kind of sucks. I gotta wait until Thanksgiving just to see Wicked Part 2, but it is what it is. I'm happy to wait that because I know that Part 2 is going to be worth it. And I know that Part 2 is also going to be intertwining with Wizard of Oz. So that'll be cool to see. My dad says that there is a lot of cool stuff that has not happened yet, and I'm excited to see it. So yeah, I'm down to wait. But anyways, love that movie. It is easily my favorite musical now. Greatest Showman is still very close, but Wicked Part 1, I don't know. It just the elements all came together in such a cool way. But anyways, I'm rambling on at this point. I love the movie, and I don't know. I'm glad that audiences loved it as well. I'm glad that it's making a lot of money. I think it's kind of weird that it's not getting the amount of Oscar nominations that Emilia Perez is, because I saw that movie early at the SCAD Savannah Film Festival back in October, and that movie does not deserve all those nominations. They should all go to Wicked. But if there's anything that I hope this movie really does is I hope it inspires other filmmakers to try and make musicals, because I know that Trey Parker and Matt Stone have a musical that's coming out in just a few months, and I'm gonna see that because I love South Park. I love what they're doing, and I'm seeing Book of Mormon in a few weeks, so I'll probably make a video of that when I get back. But yeah, I hope that more musicals are made because musicals just make you feel alive in a way that other genres just don't really do. Like action, romance, comedy. Musicals, just everyone's like overacting, and which is good for the genre. And the dancing, the music, it's all great. And I don't know, I love action movies, but I also love a good musical every now and then. So I hope we see more of those because I like them. And if you guys enjoyed this format, maybe I'll do it again with something else like another movie or show or video game, whatever. Because I don't know, I just enjoy talking with the camera just because it's more direct and I'm not writing a script to talk, and so it's more just thoughts directly from me. But if you guys enjoyed, maybe I'll do it again. But anyways, that's pretty much everything I got to say here. So later.